let's switch directions just a little bit. I mean, we hear a lot of talk about failing schools today. And I mean, it's in the news. It's, I mean, it's not just a new thing. I mean, for the last couple of decades, that's just kind of, you know, out there. Many people, at least in my circles, I think it's kind of generally speaking, many people think this phenomenon is mostly an urban thing.
Mhm.
I think it's the way the media and whoever promotes that. But the reality is not. Failing schools are found in urban areas, in suburban areas, in rural communities. So, what is a failing school and what are some leading causes for it?
I don't think that there is a such thing as a failing school. I think there's a such thing as a failing community.
Mm,
Schools are a reflection of community cohesion. Community cohesion is a reflection of family stability.
mm,
Okay, so I have never seen a successful school. I've not gone to. If I go to Loudoun County, I'm not going to find. I'm not going to find low income, high crime. I'm not going to find any of those high unemployment. I'm not
yeah.
going to find any of that. I'm going to find families, families who, by and large, own their homes. It's a mother and father, married, working, taking care of their children, interacting with their neighbors, engaging in their community. So
Mhm.
usually schools are an outgrowth of the community and the family. There's a culture that goes along with education. I'll tell you a story. My mom, is from the South, grew up on a farm that was a sharecropper's farm, came north in the Great Migration. And my freshman year in college, I came back from Harvard and I was like, oh, my professors are so smart. And my mother just said, hmm. And I said, well, what's that about? And she goes, they're not very smart. I said, why do you say that? She goes, well, they take a really bunch of smart kids, they put them in a room and they give them some work and then they take credit for it. Because you could have thrown a book in there. They could have fought over the book, read the book, and done the work without the presence of the professor. She's like, it's a lot harder to teach kids that don't want to be there than it is to teach kids who do want to be there.
Yeah.
And we forget that, right?
Yeah. That's true.
Um, Kids don't get the education you want them to have. Kids get the education they take. And so if you want a successful school, you have to deal with the cultural aspect of the child wanting the education. And usually that comes from a family culture where it's important and they may be doing it to please a parent or because they see the path that their parents been on, they see the long road ahead of them
Yeah.
of why they need it. They understand the context of it, and they perform. Um, I've worked in a lot of school districts in a lot of places around the country, and I've had lots of conversations with the kids. And I can tell you that a child doesn't do poorly in school because they don't care about school. They don't care about school because at some point in time, they started to do poorly and fall behind. And
Mhm.
to protect their own self-identity, they reject the idea that they need to be good in school.
Mhm.
And once that culture set in, that's a very difficult thing to fight. And mostly that's a cultural change that you have to make in the community to lift them up. Now, that being said, there are artificial ways to do it, right? Like when we look at a private school that's doing well, and we say, see, the private school does it better. Not necessarily. The private school is a self-selecting community. Parents who are engaged take the time and resource to move their child there. And so you're literally selecting parents and creating a micro education community, right? But the key is always with the parents and the family,
That's
right?
true. There's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, it's always there. And I think that's why our schools are starting to fail. I think, we rely too much and put too much faith in the government overlords of schools. And we allow them to just do things that aren't evidence-based,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Um, they don't look at the science. For example, some schools are saying, oh, we're going to get rid of homework because it doesn't do any good, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that unless you practice and have repetition, you don't learn anything. We all know this. At your job, we know this. This is human behavior. It's necessary for education, but somebody decided, because they don't understand why the kid doesn't want to do the work, they came with an explanation so they don't have to ask the kid to do the work or follow up to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's a problem with government schools. It's not, they don't have to be evidence-based to be funded. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And there's no consequence to making mistakes. And and it can take a very long time to correct those mistakes.
So, there again, that reflects back on, what is the environment at home? If you've got a strong environment at home, they're going to see that homework is done. So the child performs based on what's going on at home. And if you don't have a strong environment at home, the child is not probably going to have the initiative just to do it. They go home, they got other distractions and whatnot. And if there are no real consequences for them not doing their work, but that really goes back into a deeper situation where the system itself is has degenerated into a situation where there really is no real accountability all the way up through. And so the way you solve problems is you take away requirements. So, for example, our governor just made the decision that we were going to scale back on higher math learning. Because that, as if that's going to be a solution. I mean, that's not a solution. That is devastating to all of these people that are so needed in the workforce. And if we don't learn higher math skills, we'll never compete with the world. It's just the harsh realities. But the solution is always, well, it's not working out, so we'll let it go, instead of finding out a better way to engage at a deeper level, as you're talking about in our communities, engage in a deeper level and find ways to innovatively motivate. Bottom line is everything comes down to motivation. There's incentive, there's reward, there's, what's the ideal that's put into the child's mind. As you mentioned, a lot of times that comes from their community, from their family, and where that's lacking, it's really difficult to shape that in a classroom when the child can't see it at home or really even imagine it because they have no real experience in that.